Boys and girls, your attention, please.
Hello and welcome back to the Inside the Park for May. It is podcast number 931, the Japanese Grand Prix review. That's right, this is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
You know what we do on Race Review Weekends?
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
Oh, I should know by now, don't you think? And we're going to talk about the riveting Japanese Grand Prix because, my, is there so much to talk about, huh? We'll see. But before doing that, I have to actually bring in my co-host. You know what that means.
Ripped from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charlesley, the International.
It's Paul Charlesley representing Go Blues.
Woo, go Blues.
That's right.
Yeah, man, that band's pretty loud you got there in the room.
Yeah, you like that band? Yeah,
It's pretty loud, yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a little crazy over there. Tell them to calm it down.
I know. I feel like I got Paul Schaefer over there or something. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, baby. Yeah, man. So, oh my, we're having some fun now.
Yes.
Yeah, so, Paul, I mean, you know, the F1 pundits, I feel bad for him because, you know, Sky and everybody was talking about, oh my gosh, this is really setting up to be a real firecracker of a race. And, you know, Max pulled the rabbit out of his hat. And he's going to get chased down and devoured by McLarens, by a brace of McLarens, and none of that happened. None of it.
In fact, nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Yeah, nothing. I have a soundbite for that. Nothing.
Yeah. I feel bad for the crowd. They put all the effort in, you know.
I know. Made all those
The
hats.
crowd brought it. The race did not.
The crowd. The Japanese crowd always brings it.
Yeah.
They're terrific. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love
I can't
that
wait
crowd.
to go and do a race in Japan sometime.
I know.
Itching for
And
it.
if you go to Suzuka, somebody better put your butt in a car and let you take R130 flat.
Damn right.
That's right.
Yep. I've been through Eau Rouge now, so now I just need 130R, right?
Yeah, R130R, yeah. What did I say, R130?
I don't know.
Is that on the elements table? I don't know. Oh, man, it is not
it's
easy.
actually, yeah, it's not easy. It's nearly a semicircle.
Yeah.
R130.
It is. I was told there would be no math in this paper. Oh my. Well, let's do a little formation lap. Let's not spin it on the formation lap. Do a little table setting here. It's a tough circuit, made tougher with the multiple red flags for fires, leaving some of the rookies with limited running on the track, including Jack Doohan, who sat out FP1, which I thought was a little odd, given that he really could have used the runtime in FP1. Okay, fair enough. Red Bull looked on the back foot all Friday, if I'm honest, and it was an amazing turnaround for Max with an incredible pole position. I think Christian Horner said they had the car completely upside down all weekend, trying to figure out how to get the understeer out on turn in, or the understeer at mid corner, the snap oversteer and the understeer. You know, they were just really, wringing its neck. Yeah, chasing the setup of that car. And then come Saturday, they definitely got that. Had a brilliant pole position. I thought it was terrific. The resurfaced sector 1 was kind of interesting too. I noticed when they stopped and I think Sky pointed this out too, but it seemed to retain a little bit more moisture than sectors 2 and 3. So that was, kind of a little head scratch. You had to be a little careful at the start of that. There's still some patches of water, really around the whole track, but primarily in sector 1 I saw.
Well, at least it wasn't fires.
At least it wasn't fires, right? I mean, so that's good. I did love seeing the drivers almost literally throw the cars into Decker 1 and Decker 2. That is so fun to watch. I love how they were doing that. And I say this every year, Paul. It's like a scratch record when the Japanese Grand Prix comes along, but I say it every year. In my time watching F1, it's the 130R was the beast, right? And then it was the spoon curve, right? And now it's the Degners, and how time has changed with cars and the technology. But the Degners are a lot of fun, especially Degner
So
2.
fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the one that kind of a little mistake here, you just lost a ton of time, especially in practice. We saw a lot of that, and in qualifying too.
Saw a lot of them putting wheels over the curb there for sure. And the other thing I noticed out of this weekend, kind of noticed it really since the beginning of the season, but I did want to mention the difference in commentary from the broadcasters and F1 pundits and fans online. Excuse me. The conventional narrative is, well, time out here. We need to give Carlos, Lewis, Kimi, Isaac, Ali, Yuki a little more time to come to grips with this car. Meanwhile, you need to get Jack and Liam out now. And I was like,
Aussies out.
yeah, I was like, do they not get a little time to come to grips with their car? What's the difference? Why does Carlos get time to come to grips with a Williams, no less, and Jack and Liam, who first time in those cars, don't? I don't know. Where's the parity, Paul?
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame we're doing, obviously, missing that practice. You got to think Briatore's behind it somewhere, padding his wallet somewhere. But the guy that got the pre-practice, did you see? Right after the Japanese Grand Prix, he now moved over to the Alpine team.
Yeah.
It's like, really? So you took your new guy, you took him, like, take away half his practice for a guy that wasn't actually going to be a part of your team on Monday.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. How to tell me you want to get rid of Jack Doohan without telling me you want to get rid of Jack Doohan.
Right. Yeah.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And
it is.
I'm just saying, why the difference? Okay, Carlos and Lewis, they're veterans. They've been around a long time. We know they're great drivers. Give them time to get. I get it. But, Kimi, Isaac, Ali, they're rookies, just like Jack and Liam are, right? So, Ali's had some odd things. Isaac had a spin on the formation lap. No one's calling for their, hide. And yet everyone's screaming for Liam and Jack to get dumped. I don't know. It's weird to me.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about the race.
Let's get into it.
Paul, I've been writing about Formula One at the Parc Fermé for 20 years. I've been podcasting for 18. All right. And, Paul, you're just going to have to give me a little time to come to grips with podcasting here,
Okay.
All right. So everybody just back off,
slack.
man.
Yeah.
A little slack.
You'll flourish. You'll flower.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably, if we give you just the space and the time.
Once I get my podcast craft down, and I like a sharp turn into the podcast. I do, and I
definitely did with that.
I don't
music,
like understeer in a podcast. I don't like waiting on that.
No.
So
no one likes waiting.
No one likes that. Let's start at the very top at the sharp end of the grid. We'll start with Red Bull, Yuki Tsunoda, P12. If memory serves correct, that's where Liam Lawson finished the Chinese Grand Prix. Max Verstappen in P1. Yuki finished in P12. Interesting to see him struggle more, though, as the weekend progressed. The Sky team said that he had more downforce on his car, so a different setup. And at first blush, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe hedging possible. I don't know. But then I got to thinking, and I'm assuming here, set me right, Paul, but I'm thinking maybe he had a little more downforce to make him a little more comfortable with the car.
Yeah.
And maybe a bit of a strategy move. Maybe he could be splitting the strategy a little, but I think if the changes they made for quali with Max, if they also made that on Yuke's car, that would have been, even more difficult for him, I think. And so maybe his pace was off, a little bit because he had more downforce, but maybe that was kind of, getting embedded in and a little bit more comfortable with what has been called an incredibly twitchy car. That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good strategy for a team. Obviously, year after year at the Indy 500, it's the same strategy, right? They get people to the point, rookies, they get them to the point where they can drive it flat out, but they give them lots of downforce to be able to do that and gradually turn the screws to less and less downforce because it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's faster.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it would make sense here. I mean, it sounds like they're looking at big picture with Yuki for the whole
Mm-hmm.
season.
Yeah.
So it
So
wasn't a
easing
panic.
him into it.
Yeah, ease him into it, and
Yeah.
maybe they're learning. We said, the
Yeah.
issue isn't Leon Lawson or Albon or Gasly or all those guys. It's how the team goes about bringing in new drivers to the team and say, hey, here's Max's setup, drive it or go away. Maybe just maybe they're learning, but that would be probably the best scenario to bring a new driver in. It's definitely not to throw Max's ultimate setup on there, because he's nearly the only driver that can drive it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what Alonso said too after the race. So yes, I mean, in qualifying, Lawson, was ahead of Yuki, for qualifying, of course, but but Yuki got around Liam at the start. But I would say, on balance, though, Paul, I'd say he had a pretty good weekend, all things given, especially with all the pressure of being a home race, et cetera, first time in the car. I thought he looked pretty decent in Friday practice. Obviously got a little slower. Qualifying didn't go great in the race. He wasn't tearing up the top 10 for points. But I, on balance, though, I can't really say that he had a miserable weekend. I think he did okay.
Yeah, it was decent, I would say. Obviously, the qualifying was so important here, and he definitely blew that.
Yeah. Or my expectations a little low, because this guy's been driving for that outfit for 4 years, right?
Well, he's definitely coming with a lot more experience within that team than anyone else has moving up to the team. As they said on the TV, he's been on the simulator. He understands the team. He couldn't be set up more to be a teammate to Max, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, the qualifying didn't go well, and he kind of got stuck back there. I think he looked fairly decent in the practices, etc.
Yeah.
Hard to tell. Obviously everyone's on different schemes during the practices, but I don't. It's definitely not a reason to then start looking for the number 3 driver for this year. Right. But it also wasn't like, oh my God, finally we got someone who could, back up Max. That definitely didn't happen.
Yeah, I'd say, and at the risk of sounding contrary, given the team's lack of patience with Liam, I would say give Ukes, a little more time. Let's see if he can get his head around the car, if they can get a car that's comfortable for him to drive, that he's quick in, something Liam wasn't really afforded. But I know that the team feel Yuki would be, or at least this is what they publicly said, that Yuki would be beneficial for them in car development and trying to get that RB20 a little more complacent.
I don't see that.
Yeah, I
don't think that's been Yuki's moniker anyway, and you've got Max Verstappen to figure out the development. But yes, maybe with 4 years experience, maybe he can tune the car a bit more to his liking than Liam was able to do because of his lack of experience. But going into it, they knew that. Right?
Yeah.
So they should have afforded it.
Yeah. On Max's side, like I said, it's sublime on Saturday and Sunday. I thought he had a fantastic race. Although I leave this race wondering, is this track specific performance or have the team unlocked hidden performance in the car for the balance of the season to be more competitive week in, week out? Now we won't know, but they did seem to really turn the car inside out, trying to get that performance out of it. And it seemed to make a big jump from Friday to Saturday. I'd also argue that the nature of the track also played a role in the ability to pass dirty air, the delta needed to make long runs or an undercut or passes work. So I think that played into his hands as well. I'm guessing that this is not indicative of what we could see in Bahrain, but you never know.
Yeah. I think it was the Max factor this weekend, really. I mean, the qualifying was everything. He made the difference. I'm not sure the car has made any leaps and bounds. And by controlling the race in the front, which he could do at this track, he didn't have to go beyond the limit or get pushed by the McLarens too much. They couldn't push him too much. So, I think jury is still out on that one. I don't see a big miraculous change, though. It's just really the Max factor, honestly. Yeah,
you also have account the first 3 races, relatively coolish temperatures, right? They get back to the Middle East, get some of that hot weather. I think a lot of people feel like that's where the McLarens will come unsung. So we'll see. Hard to know. Speaking of McLaren, let's jump to them. You had Lando Norris. This isn't right. Is it? No, P2 for Lando Norris. P3 for Oscar Piastri. I didn't even bother changing that. That's terrible.
Sorry.
I was looking over my notes and I
mean, I was going through your notes for hours last night, and I should have picked that up in the editing.
Hours, I know.
Yeah.
And I was trying to, make sure.
Well, look faster, Todd.
I didn't. It's terrible. Let's see. The team said that Andrea Stella said that in reality, you needed 0.8 in order to make an undercut or a pass work. And at first blush, when I heard him say that to Ted, I was thinking, wow, is that a sour grapes thing or is that real? But then Christian Horner also echoed that and said that's kind of what they saw and that they didn't really see any way to get past Max or create a different outcome. Meanwhile, the Sky Sports crew were nearly apoplectic and reckon they made a mistake by not splitting the strategies with Oscar and Lando and going after Max and attacking. And I think you have to factor in the situation where the entire midfield had no significant gaps to box into for the leaders.
Right.
And that made it even more difficult if you were thinking, well, just split the strategy, let Oscar through and let Oscar run him down. And then, that kind of thing. And I think, it's easy. It would be easy for me to say from a couch, but I think the complexity of no gaps to box into, the undercut being relatively strong, both Lando and Oscar said ultimately it just came down to qualifying as to who won because the top 6 cars finished where they were. And I don't know if I'm 100% convinced an undercut wouldn't have worked given Kimi's pace. But then again, if you're trying to make the battle to Max, it's very likely, Paul, that one of the McLaren drivers would have been the guinea pig or their strategy would have possibly placed them off the podium had they gone for that maximum attack.
Right.
So which driver do you pick pick to be the tail gunner and the guinea pig or the first one over the wall, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the dilemma that they have.
Yeah.
With their 2 number one. They can't literally sacrifice one for the other, which Red Bull were always ready to do with Sergio.
Right.
They could have 2-stopped Piastri. He could have been out there as a blocker and let, Norris do the overcut. I think they should have been a bit more creative and not just accept the fact that that's how it was going to be. I think, obviously, with Kimi's pace, we saw you could have got a lot longer and still kept up pretty good pace on those mediums, and then you would definitely have had an advantage when you come back to the hards. So they're playing it safe because they want to win the world championship.
Yeah.
And this is how they're going to do it. They don't need to risk so much for risk their own points and derision in the team with the 2 drivers to win one race. It's a big picture thing. Don't blame them for doing it.
Paul, if you were in Andrea's position, you wonder about. I'm not disagreeing with it at all, and we were texting back and forth, and you were saying, "Hey, they're thinking World Constructors Championship." So they're not going to do anything crazy. They scored great points, 2 cars on the podium, outscored everybody else. And you're right. You're 100% right. I'm wondering, Paul, in Andrea's position, at what point does Oscar/Lando start saying, hey, I'm trying to get a driver's championship here too, though.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm happy for the team and I'm here for the team and we'll do whatever we can to win the Constructors Championship, it would be nice to try to get me a championship, don't you think? Or you don't ever really care about the Drivers' Championship? Why am I here? I'm here to win a championship myself. At what point does that become a friction point?
Well, I think as I said, I think at the beginning of the season, this was the time for them to sit down with everyone not in the season to have a calm discussion and framework for how they're going to run this season because they have the superior car. And in my mind, how I would do it, I would say, hey, first off, we've got to win the World Constructors. That brings in money to the team. That helps us do everything else and keeps this team, singing along and competitive, which both the drivers want to be in the most competitive car on the track. We took a long time to get here. We got to keep this advantage as long as we can. And I'm sure there's a point in the season where they're going to say, okay, let's go to the break. Let's see where we all sit, and then we'll have another discussion about how we want to run the second half of the season. Up until that point, I would say it's got to be all about the team, putting all those points in the team, giving them a good, nice big cushion, so then they can allow the drivers to maybe race a little harder later on in the race. Right now, if they start racing each other now, they're putting themselves in jeopardy and McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. So they've got to play the game for a while. The only way for these guys to differentiate themselves from each other is qualifying, the start of the race, not making a mistake, getting out in front, and that's your chance. And it's in the driver's hands to out-qualify his teammate and to gain that advantage to the race and kind of gain the priority in the race as well. So till that point where McLaren have satisfied that they've got a good enough cushion to win the championship, I don't see a lot of change in the format of how they're going to go racing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You could say at the beginning, I was just thinking, as you were saying, maybe at the beginning of the season, you're saying, well, look, here's how we're going to roll. We're here to win the Constructor Championship, and we'll do whatever we can to get the drivers too. And the reality of it is, if we're running 1 and 2, we're going to hold station and we're going to finish 1 and 2. Right. And if the trailing car is markedly quicker than the leading car of the two, and it's verified and it's clear on our data too, we're going to swap cars. Mm-hmm. All right. And we're going to swap them and let them attack or whatever. But you set these ground rules up front, or at least you right size the expectations going in. To your point, though, maybe get that Constructors' Championship where you're feeling comfortable enough to make maybe that focus switch a little to the Drivers' Championship and see what you can do. But
yeah, I think it's going to come later on. I mean, it is tricky because the strategy-wise, they've got to think of each individual driver, not upsetting them, not giving anyone an obvious advantage in that, because that was obviously what reared its head last year, which was uncomfortable to say the least.
Yeah, it sure was.
Right? So yeah.
Yep, I agree. Well, let's talk about it. Lando Norris, good start, ran with Max, held off Oscar for P2, had that close moment with Max as he stopped at the same time. Sky was wondering why they boxed him with Max instead of the overcut, undercut. He ran wide in the grass, slotted back behind Max into P2. That's where he finished. A lot of talk about boxing with Max, as I mentioned, but perhaps I'm guessing, Paul, that the tire deg was so low that any gain that he might have had would have been very, very low in terms of grip difference over a lap. Because as we saw that, it just didn't seem like the tire deg was a factor.
No, and it depends how quickly. There was obviously a lot more grip in the track. It's about they outlap how quick you can fire the tires up.
Yeah.
Versus the person on there quick lap trying to gain a couple of tenths to try and get some kind of position. I would say it was worth a try. I don't think it was going to put him in jeopardy because Piastri was still like 4 seconds or something behind him when they came out of the pit lane. So I think they should have given it a go, at least for that fact. But I said I think it's going to be interesting how safe they play it the whole time. And the pit stop was quicker. They nearly beat Max out, but then obviously Max was not going to give Lando enough room to allow him to the inside. That definitely wasn't going to happen.
No.
Max absolutely knew where he was and took up all the room he could, and not allow Lando to do that, which I'm quite surprised Lando chose to go on the grass, quite honestly.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah.
You never know what can happen. You've never been on that grass before. Yeah, get a puncture, the car bounces in a weird way.
Yeah,
I don't think that was the best idea either.
No, I don't either. I think he should have backed out, slotted in P2 and went after him. Oscar looked quick too. He radioed the team and told him they was quicker than Lando. And he wanted to take a poke at Max, but the team didn't orchestrate a swap. Oscar finished down in P3. Paul, I also think, talking about Oscar's race, This is pure speculation on my part, but I'm kind of wondering if boxing Russell didn't force the hand of McLaren a little bit,
Oh, for
because
sure.
if the delta is right at 8/10, and that's what it takes to get around someone or make an undercut work, he wouldn't have had a chance really to repass George had he lost that spot. I think,
Right.
as it turns out, and the
Right.
team clearly knew that.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, he boxed early and why would they do that? I think he was covering Russell, and I think Russell started. That's my guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was running behind Lando. That was who he was racing and who they were concerned of,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, and with good reason. I mean, George has been on the podium twice, this season. So they had a reason to think that that might be an issue.
Yeah.
So good enough. Hey, by the way, I don't know if you heard, you probably didn't watch Sky Sports, but I didn't know if you catch one of the 132 times that Crofty told the world that it was Oscar's birthday.
No, I did not watch
Oh,
Sky.
bummer. Okay.
I think I mentioned that before. I think, yeah, not the biggest fan of that side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back to the Oscar thing. So,
Yep.
just because lost my train of thought there was Oscar's gonna say he's faster.
Yes.
I mean, that's, Lando's gonna say he ran me off the road. They're
Right.
all, trying to politic themselves into a position. But
Lando's going to say, I'm just saving tires.
yeah, but the team knows the conditions on the track are that whatever position you're in, you're kind of going to get stuck. And even if Oscar did have a go, he would have got stuck behind Max just like Lando did.
Right.
And then you got to switch the positions back, and then that opens another whole can of worms. So
it does.
Probably better to play it that way, understanding how the track was running and how difficult it was to pass during this event.
More power to McLaren. They may, they may have a hard time preventing the Rosberg Hamilton debacle. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
And not as good news, Ferrari, Charles Leclerc P4 off the podium, Lewis Hamilton P7. Charles had a handful of George Russell early in the race, trying to keep the Mercedes at bay. He did manage to make his stop work. He didn't lose any ground and came home P4, so that was good for him. Getting a little testy on the radio with the team these days is young Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not, I had my fantasy picks, man. I have sank like a stone in the in the cushions of our couch. I had the podium as Lando, Oscar, and Charles. Damn you, Max.
Yeah. I had the two McLarens. I had Norris, Oscar, and Max. But so I didn't get any either. I nearly, but not. But luckily, I think my actual team, not my predictions, is my strong point right now.
Well, sure it is.
I'm not telling you what I got.
Tell everyone what your team is.
No, I'm not gonna.
Let's see. So yeah, I mean, not a great race, but P4 is there or thereabouts for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're waiting for and maybe it is the cold weather. This car is not, but there's a lot of races, luckily for them, to try and make up that time. But right now they're just kind of pedaling,
praying
average,
for upgrades.
just waiting for something to change, waiting for the world to change.
Right.
But yeah, probably pretty lonely race for Charles, unfortunately.
Right. Let's see, Lewis, tougher day for him, starting on the hards, which I at first blush, kind of mid first stint, I was thinking it might be a good split strategy actually. Unfortunately, after a long stint running in P2, he couldn't get the pace out of the medium tires. Said the team had identified something that wasn't performing well on the car, and so he was hoping that they'd fix that for Bahrain. We'll have to see. But finished down in P7. Yeah,
it was surprising that he didn't make any headway on the mediums.
I kind of thought
I thought, okay, he's looking pretty good. He's going to get on the medians, but Kimi, Antonelli pulled away from him.
Yeah,
on new hards, and he had new mediums, so there was definitely something up where he just did not have the pace on the mediums, which was unexpected.
Yeah, it would have been. Let's see. Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli P6, George Russell P5. George finished where he started, as did the first 6 cars, as I mentioned. But that's not all bad, considering that he had the pace to run with the Ferraris, keep the Ferraris behind him. George tried the undercut and was unable to make that work. In fact, I think he may have lost a little time on that. I don't know if that was a slower stop or not, but perhaps I do think that spooked McLaren into doing the undercut. And George also said that Pirelli should have brought softer compounds to resurface tracks, because he said those hards would have lasted the entire race.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to know though, because resurfacing.
Yeah.
Everyone's not resurfaced in the same way. Sometimes a new surface can be brutal, but for the most part, it's not very abrasive, a new surface, and usually it affords a bit more grip. So I would probably agree with that.
Yeah. It's another P6 for Kimi Antonelli, and he led the race at one point, making him the youngest driver to do so, which was great. Watching Kimi in his final stint, Paul, I have to admit that it's hard not to consider that there's something very special about this young guy.
Yeah, it was really an impressive drive. I think the long stint maybe was more impressive than the second shorter stint, because he obviously had a tire advantage. But keeping the pace on those tires for so long, where he wasn't like back in the middle of the back of the pack there when he came back out, was very impressive also. Especially for a guy that we know is like full attack mode most of the time.
Yeah.
Seems to be making short work of the learning craft of taking care of those tires.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It was a good run. RBs, you had Isaac Hedger on P8, Liam Lawson P17. Isaac, what a great weekend. He had scoring his first points in F1. Terrific run to P8. Good to see him deliver, overcome that moment in Australia, get that out of your head. He bounced back in China.
Cried it all out.
Yep, he cried it all out, and then really bounced back in Japan. Looked great, doing a great job, I think. He even held off Lewis for a little bit, his idol. Lewis got around him eventually, but that was good. And all that while having your privates squeezed in a vice grip. So you got to hand it. You overcame that too, and that's it's not always fun. So good weekend for Isaac. Great job.
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine your idol, you being side by side with him on the grid and actually being ahead of him and having him in your mirrors? How cool would that be?
Yeah.
That'd be like being James Hunt, bouncing off each other in a saloon car race or something.
Yeah.
It'd just be thrilling. He's a surprise to me, honestly. I wasn't expecting a lot from Hajar. He's got pace.
He does.
I think there's going to be some ups and downs for him. But I think ultimately he's, he earned the right, and he's really showing why they chose him. And as I said, I did not see it coming. I thought he was just going to be, kind of mired there at the back. But he's having some good runs. And as we say, if someone can put their head above water or above the heads of some of the other drivers in F1 this early, it kind of shows you that they've got something special. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else he's got there.
Yeah, me too. Just he's had a great start to the season. Yeah, he had the thing in Australia, but that happens. And just a great job. Good job, Isaac, and keep it up. Liam, tougher day for him. He out-qualified Tsunoda, and I'm sure that, he felt a little vindicated by that, but he came on P17. Liam got jumped by Yuki, ran a long stint, giving him soft tires for the final stint, and for some reason, he just couldn't get the softs to work like Carlos Sainz, who had boxed the same time for softs. Mm-hmm. Carlos got his to work. Liam couldn't. I'd say that it might take a bit to get back into the RB rhythm for Liam. I mean, let's see how he does in Bahrain. And keep in mind, he's only had 3 abbreviated practice sessions to get used to this car. He's never driven this car, right? So, and Isaac's had 3 races and all the practice and sprint race and all that in it. So, give him a little time here. I know I just said at the beginning, the entire world seems to want him gone. But I think you got to give him a little time here and let him get his sea legs in this car.
Yeah, I don't think it was bad. I think just the strategy they kind of threw it out there.
They did.
Figured Why not? You know, I mean, that's what these strategies are going to do. You're going to be a hero or a zero.
Yeah, exactly.
If they don't pan out. I mean, Kim and Antonelli made it work, but obviously Lawson's more in the mid-pack fight, and that's a little harder.
Yeah.
To make the difference. So I think it was just a strategy thing to put him back there. It's kind of like, hey, if you're 3 goals down, you know, throw your goalie in there to try and head in the corner.
Yeah, right.
You know, why not?
Right.
You've got nothing to lose. Out qualifying Tsunoda must have been extremely gratifying.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, I even did a little poll on Twitter, and everyone, it was like 75% thought Yuki was going to out qualify Lawson. So
I answered that poll.
Yeah.
I said
And
no,
who'd you
he
pick?
wouldn't. I picked Yuki.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because I was banking on the veteran. He'd been there
Yep.
for 4 years, you know. He should be able to step into that car and do better than a rookie.
Yeah.
So I thought Yuki would have him, but he didn't. Let's see. Williams, Alex Albon P9, Carlos Sainz P14. Alex had another point-scoring run, getting a little upset on the team radio there, and said that the team
What
made
happened to cute little Albon and his cats? I don't know.
Cute little, I know, he's like grumpy Alex, and said the team made absolutely no sense. And I mean, he went all Yuki on him.
He did go Yuki on him. You're right.
Yeah.
He's been kind of like that.
He has lately.
Yeah. He always sounds out of breath too, like. But
so does Yuki.
What are you guys doing? Yeah.
Why? Yeah. So
But I don't know what's Alex's deal. It's not the way to behave, really.
Yeah.
As I said, that was one of the things I had against Yuki. Is like, you gotta treat your crew members like they're there to actually help you, not as a sounding board for your frustration.
Yeah. And that
it's
whole
not going to do you any good.
And to be honest with you, I think it worked out just fine when they boxed him. You know, he thought that he ran long for a stint. He was upset with that, but I think it worked out fine. And the team was probably on the money, you know, and they came back to him and said, no, it was worse to stop sooner. Right.
Right.
Because there was no gaps, right. To box into. So Alex went a little Yuki on the team, but he ended up scoring a couple points. So good on him.
Yeah, I just wonder what happens back in the.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like on the radio you can say, "Now, Alex, I think you need to apologize."
Yeah, right.
But I mean, we've had it on our team too. You know, the drivers get irate about this or that. And just say, "Okay," just give them a couple of body blows when they come into for the race review or something.
I bet James just, a nice sharp shot to the little suplex or do the big,
It's like that.
Yeah.
But
Carlos had a ragged weekend.
Great for Williams. I mean, they're kind of where the predictions were that they're there or thereabouts at this point, and scoring points in every race. So.
It's awesome.
It is.
Ragged weekend for Carlos, though. You just got to give Carlos a little time, come grips with the car, It's just, it's got to,
No, it cannot be, Ricky.
It can't be, Ricky. Give him a little time.
I don't think Ricky's answering the phone anymore.
Yeah, I like their narrative as well. It's going to take him a few races to unlearn all his bad Ferrari habits. I don't know. He's winning
like
races
winning. Yeah.
Are those bad
those
habits?
winning habits? We want to dispel them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Let's not bicker and argue about who won what. It's just Anyway, a bit ragged there. He was blocking on Saturday, got a penalty for that. Had a few off-track excursions during the race, and the race stewards were giving him the stink eye, but they didn't hand out any penalties for that. Ran a long first stint in mediums, but then, like I mentioned earlier, he boxed, put softs on, did make that work, got passed his way back up to P14, which was good. It's good that he got up there, but not on Carlos Sainz terms. It's not.
So you passed somebody, didn't you? You know what it's like.
Yeah. You've been there. With Williams. Let's see. Haas F1, Esteban Ocon, P19, Ali Behrman, P10. Ocon started on the hards, ran along for a stint, but it didn't really work the way he had hoped it was, and he was pretty much on a train at the back, and it didn't really come to fruition there, unfortunately for Esteban. a little. I guess I'm a little surprised, and I should have today. I didn't dig a little deeper into find. Were they running some sort of? I mean, he was on the hards. Ollie wasn't. So I don't know. Maybe the hards just didn't work. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's as I said, it's harder in the mid pack. If you're at the front, well, where Hamilton was, it stretches out a little bit. You get a little more gap. But when you're these kind of strategies, very hard to work. Yeah, in these with so many people you're fighting with, and you can't get away from them. And you certainly can't fight through them, at least at this track.
Yeah, tough race for Esteban. Ollie on the other side, great race for him. Qualifying helped him stay in the points. Great qualifying performance for him. Running very well in the upgraded car this weekend. Drove very well, keeping Alonso behind him for P10, which is no easy feat, as anyone will tell you.
Definitely is not.
Ollie said it was a lonely race, but he felt that he got the maximum out of the car and didn't have enough for the Williams or RB. Ultimately, he said we kind of finished kind of where we probably would have.
Yeah, no, it's great for him and the team.
Terrific
It was a really good drive,
It really was. He looks solid out there,
He does.
It's just, I really think he and Isaac and Kimi, they all just look really planted, not a lot of craziness. I think Kimi ran wide a couple times, but he was throwing everything in the kitchen sink on his final stint. And you could, I mean, he went off, but not as many times as Carlos Sainz. Ollie looked terrific. Great job from him. Aston Martin, Lance Stroll, P20, bad weekend for Lance. Alonso down in P11. Stroll tried to start on the softs. It didn't work, Paul, not at the back. And he boxed early. Then he stopped again, trying to make something happen. Did not happen for him. Finished the lap down and last. Just a bad weekend.
I think they gave up in the end, and they started going into test mode.
Data harvest mode.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Which is why I think they pitted again and all that kind of stuff.
Like,
why not really?
Yeah,
if you're
why
not
not?
Score points, and if you do come up with some kind of quick plan to get some more data, then go for it.
Yeah, if you're going to burn an engine, might as well harvest some data and get some critical information out of it you can develop on. Fernando finished his first race this season. Got around Gasly, a great pass around Gasly. Couldn't claw his way into the points, but he said it was very hard to overtake Suzuka. He said it always is similar to Monaco in that sense.
Yeah, it's become that way. Interesting that they don't put because they're very DRS friendly. Why they don't put DRS? I
know, they're so DRS
down from
happy.
Spoon to I don't know why they've. Not that I'm asking for it, because I'm not.
No.
But I'm just surprised they haven't.
Right.
At a track where they're saying, the dirty air is just basically making it processional.
Yeah, me too. Because if they know that, it's very on brand for F1 to throw 2 or 3 DRS zones in to spice up the show. But they didn't do that here. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, maybe make the DRS zone around the other side of 130R.
Yeah.
So whoever wants to leave that 130R easy now. Well, maybe it's not so easy if you have your DRS flap open.
Yeah, you could turn it back into a beast, couldn't you?
Exactly, you could.
Yeah.
Well, no, you have to run it open through there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden, everybody's doing an Alan McNish. Brutal.
I don't want to see that.
No.
Yeah, that was bad.
Let's see. Alpine, Pierre Gasly, P13, Jack Doohan, and P15. Pierre started in P11, finished P13 after being passed by Alonso at the start. He boxed at the same time as Alonso and had a slow stop, lost him a couple places. Difficult race for Pierre. I just don't. Let me put it this way, and not that I'm a grand apologist for Pierre, but if the pace was in that car, he would have found it, and it just wasn't
for
there.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep. The other thing, Jack also started on softs, boxed early. They had to swap places with Pierre because he was on fresher tires, so the team orchestrated the swap. Jack had to run a long stint on the hards, and while I think he did a decent job and finished there or thereabouts with Pierre, which is what I've said from the beginning of the season, what he needs to do. Again, everybody's calling for his replacement after the crash on Saturday, and I agree. The crash on Saturday wasn't great, but he finished thereabouts with Pierre. I get it, a driver error, and I don't know. I guess a driver, anyone recall Rosberg in the wrong engine mode in Spain and then took both he and Lewis out of the race? Does anybody remember Isaac Hajar spinning on the formation lap? How about Lewis running in the back of Kimi Räikkönen in the pit lane? I mean, Logan Sargent at Williams.
Every race.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
it happens.
Sorry, Logan.
And it was, not a great deal. I'm sure Jack feels horrible about it. But the reality of it is he had a decent race. He finished pretty much in the same zip code as Pierre Gasly. The pace wasn't in the car to do anything really more.
Yeah. So it was a big error.
It was.
In that, and put him behind. But did the team put him in that position? I
They
mean,
sat him out in FP1.
they sat him out.
And then the FP2 and 3 were marred with red flags and fires, so you can get a lot of running then.
Right. He's a young guy under pressure already.
Already.
Then you take away a practice, which puts him even further under pressure.
Yep.
He's out there, first guy out in practice too, trying to make something happen.
Yep.
Fighting for his career really.
Yeah.
And yeah, he definitely had a brain fart and made an error that was on him.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
But the team is not helping. I'm giving it 50-50 on the team and on Doohan on that crash. And I think he did come back from it pretty good. And I think
he did.
Drove a decent race. It's not, he's not going to set the world on fire because neither was Gasly. So
no.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know. I just feel bad for Jack. Because I think he's a good driver, and everybody else gets to, well, you got to give him time to come to grips. I mean, if you thought Helmut Marko was being tough, let me introduce you to Flavio Briatore.
Right.
All right. I mean, he kind of.
We just hired 3 reserve drivers.
Yeah, I think he kind of makes
Flavio
look like the cuddly uncle.
Yeah.
Or he makes Helmut like the cuddly uncle. I mean, Flavio's draconian as it gets, and he knows there's a bunch of money behind Colapinto, and they want the money, and I just.
But they're obliged to let Jack Doohan keep going.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some legalities in there, and they don't want to buy him out of the contract, and they, I just feel bad. I kind of feel like this is a young guy who's worked his tail off to get to Formula One. He's finally got there, and the team is trying to invent ways to get him out of it. And it's a shame that it's come to this. I realize it's a dog-eat-dog world, and you have to put up or shut up, and it's all about performance, and I get that. But, I don't think Bortoletto is running around right now with the team actively benching him, giving him limited running time on a track he's not familiar with, and, and in the press saying, the entire press and media, I can't wait to get Colapinto back. I don't know, folks. To me, it just rubs me wrong. It's a parody thing for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
Kick Sauber. Speaking of Gabriel Bertoletto, P19, Nico Hulkenberg, P16. Tough day for Saubers. Nico said, the car actually felt okay. Would have liked to gotten more out of it, but he said, same as Alonso, Suzuka's notoriously hard to overtake at. He spent most of the day in traffic, making it hard to progress anywhere. As you mentioned earlier, a lot of traffic, a lot of dirty air, difficult to get around. And if that 8/10 number is real, then a Sauber having 8/10 pace advantage over the Alpine in front of them was going to be a very tall order unless there was a massive tire delta, tire compound delta, which they didn't have. Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, the Sauber is looking better than it did last year.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, at least it's fighting with people. Last year, it was literally fighting with itself. So.
Yeah, for sure. It was fighting to be last year. So it was a decent race, but not exciting. Gabriel had wheel spin at the start. That kind of paid to his race, Paul, dropped him back to the tail of the grid, making things, that's a lot of work to be starting back there. You get wheel spin, you drop the back, trying to get back up. Very difficult for him to pass anyone due to the nature of the track. Both the drivers basically said for them and the team, it was pretty much kind of a learning experience, kind of as you alluded to with Lance Stroll, is just data harvest, working hard on what to develop and how to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that is the teams. That's what we think of the teams. But we like to hand out awards
Can't
for
believe we
each
squeezed
race.
it in.
I know. We got it all in, didn't we? I mean, what an action-packed race. Yeah, and that's why it's always good to have your own personal Charsley here to review. Depeche Mode almost had that song right. It's your own personal Charsley. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares. That's you.
Do I care? Yeah, usually.
Usually. Deep down inside.
Unless you call me a twat, and then I don't care anymore.
Yeah, you don't care. You're going to get both barrels about Yuki if you do that. Let's see.
Bunch of kneecaps.
Yeah, right. First award is move of the race always. And we enjoy this one, right? Don't we?
Seriously, Todd?
Yes, we do.
We'll do it live.
Yes, we will. All right, Paul. Move of the race. What'd you have?
I'm going to give it to Alonso on Gasly.
That was good.
That little game of chicken running into 130R. That was pretty hairy and pretty exciting and fun.
It was all very Alonso.
Very Alonso, yeah.
Yeah. It was really good. That was a good one. I know it was DRS fuel, but Hajar's pass where he kind of got a little shaky there going around the outside. But
around the outside. Well,
on the outside.
It's never easy to go around the outside.
No.
That's a pretty impressive turn.
It was.
Even if you'd have the tire advantage, still not.
Yeah.
Still takes some.
Old Isaac kept his foot.
They tried to take him away from him, but he had some going in there.
Yeah, he did. And he had his foot in it. He didn't lift, so good for him. Let's see, my move there is I agree with you. I think the first stint long run on Kimi was very impressive. I just think that last stint was fun to watch because he was throwing that car going 10 tenths, just going for it. He's on the radio. I'm giving it
fun
everything,
to watch.
It was really fun to watch Kimi do that.
Yeah. Sounds like that team are really enjoying having him on the team.
I think so. Yeah, more so than George.
Yeah, more so than George.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Did I just say that? The inside thing out loud? Oh no!
I'm pretty sure Toto and Susie drop him off at school after the races.
Me too.
Pick him up.
Susie's homeschooling him by now, right?
They're going to the fair. Would you like an ice cream, Kimi?
Right.
Yes, please.
Right. Let's do your maths now, Kimi. Okay. No. What's this? What is Toto wearing at the pool? No, we call that a budgie smuggler. Anyway.
Anywho.
You can see Susie homeschooling Kimi. I like that.
Yeah, good.
All right. So the next award is always Donkey of the Race. Oh, yeah.
Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango.
Yes, Clem Fandango. Can hear you.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, Paul. Donkey of the Race.
All right. Well, I could give it to Aero Wash, but I decided to give it again to Doohan.
Yeah.
Maybe the combo Doohan and the team for. But ultimately, it is the driver's responsibility. But that was literally worst case scenario.
Yeah,
jumping in the car in practice too.
And then crashing.
Make that mistake. Yeah,
it was bad. I agree. My Donkey of the Race has to be RB's belt gate. I don't know, man. He didn't complain to the belts the first two races, and I don't know what happened this weekend. And even when he was slotting on the grid, he goes, now the seat's moving. And I was thinking, does anyone have some Flex Seal tape? Anyone have some Flex Seals tape? Come on.
Yeah. So someone was asking me, well, how did that even happen? They do a lot. They tear these cars apart. They put them back together. Yeah. There's lots of. They literally have to tear the whole cockpit apart to get to things inside. So easily things can be missed or not put back right, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's obviously the mechanic's duty to make sure everything is correct.
Right.
But it does happen.
Yeah. And I got to think, Paul, you've driven, you've had that 6-point harness, boy. And those things are cinched up.
Yeah.
And you start moving a little bit and, jamming the wrong thing. Woo.
Yeah, I've had that before. You just got to make sure those. Yeah. You got to make sure these lap belts are really tight because you do not want to be sliding forward anytime.
No, you don't. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's all about positioning.
Yes, lots of positioning.
Yeah. So that's why every time Lewis gets in, he's always adjusting his junk to make sure he gets in there and everything is exactly where you want it.
Yeah, left or right. You can't be in the middle. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. All right. Well, finally, the final word is drive the race. Oh yeah.
Get in there, Lewis.
Get down.
Yes, drive the race, Paul. Who'd you have?
I got it. I'm giving it to the rookies.
Awesome.
They're all in different places, different teams of different competitiveness and different scenarios. But Kimi Antonelli, Hajar, Bierman, I think they all did a great job at a very tough track, a great track, but a very tough track to be fast at, and they all score points. So I'm giving it to the rookies.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to give it to Max. I just think it was a sublime qualifying. It was an amazing race from him. And whether they've found performance that is now on that car for the balance of season, but even if it's a one-off, it's probably even more impressive. But I think you're right in your assessment at the top of this show, Paul. I think a lot of it had to do with Max, And I know that, people that dislike Max, I know that's hard to hear. But I think even everybody in the paddock are kind of coming around. There's something otherworldly. He's a generational talent, and everyone's. I mean, you got Fernando Alonso saying he's the only guy who can do that right now on the grid
for sure.
Yeah, and that's Fernando Alonso. He's won 2 titles, and he knows how to hustle a car. Impressive, very impressive. All right,
very impressive.
That does it for this podcast. Do we come back next week, Paul?
I believe we do.
Is it next week?
Although next week I'm in Long Beach, so.
Even
but luckily
better.
Our race is on Saturday.
Oh, perfect. Perfect timing.
So be able to get to see the race.
Yes, you'll be able to see
live,
that.
Hopefully live.
Right. Your race is on Saturday and the Bahrain Grand Prix is next week. So we will be back. You listeners, dear listeners and viewers, will have your own personal charge lane next week. To review the race. And if you like this podcast, go to your favorite podcast player, give us some love and a review on that. If you watch this podcast on YouTube, for crying out loud, do the right thing. Hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, hit share. Come on, people. I'm trying to get out of it.
Your money's no good in the stock market. Just
Yeah. And there's no tariffs on our podcast.
In your entertainment.
Yeah, we have no tariffs on our podcast. It's free for everyone. So give us some love out there, spread the wealth, and do all the things you should do on YouTube. And a huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, because without you, we would not and could not do this podcast. So I'm incredibly grateful for your support. And we will be back next week to talk about and to review what I am sure is going to be an amazing Bahrain Grand Prix. So until that time, this
guaranteeing
it. Paul guarantees it. What do you got to lose? So until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long. I'm supposed to hit this, aren't I?
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.